Hey everyone, I hope you're well. This is the story about what if Naruto was master of the forbidden jutsu Jiongu. Before we start, please subscribe to the channel and like the video as well. So without any further ado, let's start the what if. Chunin Exams Tower. We will be having a short break to fix the damage in the arena, Kushina announced. She walked off to finish reading her magazine. Good match Kiba, Naruto said as the Inuzuka heir walked over. I could have done better, Kiba sighed. Man, what's my mom gonna say about this? Just tell her that your opponent was very skilled, Shikamaru said as he leaned against the railing. It'll save you a lot of trouble. So what happened on your way to the tower? Naruto asked. Kiba sighed and began, we were on our way here after we had recovered from that little scuffle with the Oto guys. Sasuke took command and I was too tired to protest, not that it would have gotten me anywhere with how my team is. So he had lead us in the wrong direction and got us caught in this highly advanced genjutsu trap laid out by a team of AIM shinobi. We managed to get free, but it seriously cost us a lot of time due to the nature of the genjutsu. So we had to book it before we were disqualified. Wow, your team has a lot of bad luck, Hinata said. What do you mean? Ino asked. Our first C-rank mission turned into an A-rank one due to the appearance of Zabuza Momochi, Kiba told her. Isn't that the guy who joined the village about a month ago? Choji wondered. Yup, Naruto managed to convince them to join the village when his team came to back up ours, Kakashi informed him. What can I say? I have a way with words, Naruto said as he grinned. Careful Naruto-kun, or that ego of yours might cause your head to burst, Hinata giggled. Naruto just faked a pout that sent everyone into laughter. Across from them, Gaara stared at Naruto with interest. Both of his siblings and sensei were sharing nervous looks, afraid that he may lose control. Several minutes later. Alright everyone, we're going to start the matches again, so pay attention, Kushina said as she turned everyone's attention to the electronic board. The screen then began to roll through the available names before stopping on the next pair. Karui of Kyumo vs Niji Hyuga. It seems fate has given me a chance to get revenge for my father, Niji grinned sadistically. Guy frowned at his student, especially when he heard the next part that was quietly whispered. A shame though that I can't get revenge on the main family though. Guy had a pretty good idea on how Niji would try to get revenge on the main family. Hey, girly boy. Get down here so I can kick your ass already. Karui yelled. That attitude is like an Uzumaki's, Kushina thought. If she wasn't dark-skinned, I would think that she was one. It has been known that an Uzumaki is either pale-skinned or light-tanned. There has never been any Uzumaki that was dark-skinned. Just surrender, fate has already decreed me the winner, Niji said as he slid into the Juken stance. Karui just scoffed and gripped her sword that was on her back. Are both fighters ready? Kushina asked. Both nodded and the female Uzumaki started the match. Niji and Karui raced towards each other and attacked. Niji with a simple chakra-laced palm strike, and Karui with a slash of her sword. Both managed to dodge each other's strike and whirled around for another one. This time, Niji slid under her sword and managed to jab her in the leg. Karui jumped back and attempted to get the numbing sensation out of her leg. Niji capitalized on this and darted forward with another palm strike. Karui managed to knock his strike away and punched him in the chest. This did little to stop him however, as he had felt worse with Guy. But it served its purpose of stalling him for a moment so Karui could leap over him and kick him in the back. Is that the best you can do? Niji taunted. I felt harder kicks from the dead last on my team. Idiot Hyuga, don't underestimate the power of Kyumo, Karui scoffed. Oh yes, Niji began, let us not underestimate the power of Kyumo. Their power to try and kidnap little children in order to boost their own power. Karui saw red and charged at Niji with a loud battle cry. Niji smirked and slid into another stance. I don't need to show my trump card here, I'll save that for later. 8 trigrams, 32 palms. Niji then raced forward and began a series of jabs into Karui's tenketsu. 2 palms. 4 palms. 8 palms. 16 palms. 32 palms. Karui crumpled into a heap at Niji's feet. The older Hyuga smirked and walked away as Karui's sensei jumped down and helped his student onto the stretcher of the medical team. Kushina announced Niji as the winner, but glared at him behind her mask. "I didn't think that he would be this brutal towards a Kyumo ninja," Naruto muttered. Hinata just looked down at her feet, feeling sad for her cousin. Naruto noticed this and squeezed her shoulder in a comforting manner. "Don't worry about it, one day, one of us will knock some sense into him," he grinned. "You're right, thank you Naruto-kun," Hinata smiled. "Next fighters," Kushina announced. Zaku Abumi vs Ryu of Taki. The two fighters entered the arena, Zaku with his right arm in a sling, and Ryu with 2 containers filled with water on his waist. "Are both fighters ready?" Kushina asked. "Let's get this over with," Ryu sneered. "Bring it on, punk!" Zaku yelled. The next thing they knew, they were rubbing their heads as they sported matching bumps. "I asked you a question." Kushina roared as she expelled a large amount of Ki. Ino and Choji hugged each other out of fear. Kiba hugged Akamaru for dear life, Kankuro was on the floor foaming at the mouth while Temari was trying to breath, Baki was holding onto the railing, and Gaara was shivering out of fear. It didn't help that Shikaku was screaming in fear himself. Guy was down on his knees as he tried to stop shaking, Lee in a similar state, Tenten was on her back as she tried to breath, and Niji was holding onto the railing like it was a lifeline. Shikamaru was knocked out, and Asuma was up against the wall while trying to keep it together. Anko was just barely keeping herself from going down there and making Kushina her new best friend. In the seal, the Kyubi was shivering while using his tails to cover his rear, remembering the time he had called Kushina fat when she was actually pregnant with Naruto. It was an experience he wouldn't even wish on Madara. Jiyu had fainted on top of his head. Dosu and Kin were knocked out by the pure rage and Orochimaru was down on his knees. "Where have I felt this before?" He roared in his head as he tried to get control of himself. Yujito was down in the fetal position while Omoi was passed out, and Killer Bee was shaking, especially since this Ki was worse than his brother's. Fu was shaking like a leaf and holding onto the railing for dear life. The only ones not affected were Hiruzen, Tsunade, Shizune, Teammate, and Kakashi. Because they were used to Kushina's anger. Though it didn't help the pain go away. Hyuga compound. "Be a man!" Hitomi yelled as she pounded on her bedroom door. "I will not risk my health." Hayashi yelled back as he barricaded the door. Kushina's Ki was felt throughout the village, and Hayashi was currently barricading himself, Hanabi, and Natsumi in his and his wife's room until the Uzumaki matriarch was calm. He only left Hitomi outside because she was safe from Kushina's anger every time it erupted. "She's in the forest of death," Hitomi yelled. "That means nothing," Hayashi protested. "Why is your Tucson acting funny?" Natsumi asked her friend. "I think it's because he can tell that your Kaa-san is angry," Hanabi answered. Natsumi awed and continued watching Hayashi fortify the door. In the beginning, Natsumi was extremely shy and nervous around anybody who wasn't Kushina, though she wasn't as nervous around Naruto due to her feeling a connection to him. Eventually, she managed to get comfortable around the Hyuga and Senju families and was able to enjoy her time with them. Hanabi even became her best friend, albeit, her only friend that is her age. Chunin Exams Tower. Tsunade managed to calm down Kushina and get the masked woman to continue the match. "Her temper's worse than I remember," the slug Sonin thought as she made her way back up the steps. "So, are you two ready?" Kushina asked. "Yes," the two fighters said, afraid for their lives if she got mad again. Kushina started the fight and jumped back. "I'm gonna blow you away," Zaka declared as he lifted his good arm and aimed it at Ryu. Zenkaha. A blast of compressed air at Ryu. The Taki ninja jumped out of the way and threw a kunai at Zaku, but it was blown away by another blast of air. Alright then, so it looks like you're using some fake futon jutsu, Ryu noted. What? Does that mean that you can't use any real jutsu? He taunted. That's it. 0% sound, 100% air. Zenkaha. Zaku fired more blasts of air at Ryu. Some of them managed to clip the Taki Genin. Time to end this. Suiton, water palms. Ryu opened the containers on his waist and used his chakra to control the water so that it would stick to his hands. Here he goes again, that one trick phony, Fu muttered as she watched the match through half-closed eyes. Ryu dashed forward and clasped his hand around Zaku's good arm as he prepared another Zenkaha while aiming his other hand to punch Zaku in the gut as the water formed some spikes on his fist. The Oto shinobi then whipped his other arm out of the sling, revealing that it was healed the whole time, and aimed it at Ryu's head. The Taki Genin Quickie moved his hand to grab Zaku's other hand and the two were in a struggle. Let go! Zaku yelled as he tried to free his hands. You first! Ryu shot back. Up on the balcony, Dosu sighed. To think he's getting matched blow for blow by a shinobi from a minor village. Kin nodded in agreement while Orochimaru sighed, seeing that the upgrades he gave Zaku weren't helping him. Fine then, Zenkaha. Zaku yelled as he fired a blast of air at Ryu in hopes of blowing the Taki shinobi off of him. But things didn't go as planned. The blast of air made both shinobi shoot back and hit their heads against the wall, knocking them both out. Both are unable to continue, this match ends in a draw, neither will advance, Kushina declared after taking a good look at the two. Great, guess that means I'll have to win, for Taki, Fu muttered. Though it would be nice if I just fought for myself. Maybe you'll get lucky and have to fight that person from Kabuto's team, he doesn't look that strong, Naruto said. Naruto-kun. Be nice. Hinata chided as she slapped his arm. Naruto chuckled nervously and backed away. Oh look, the next two are up, Naruto said as he deflected the attention to the screen. Dosu Kinyuta vs Misumi Tsurugi. Don't take too long, Kin said as Dosu made his way to the stairs. The mummified boy just chuckled and continued walking. The purple-clothed Konoha Genin was already there and tapping his foot impatiently. Are both fighters ready? Kushina asked. Yes, Dosu told her, Misumi just nodded. Kushina started the match and jumped back as Misumi dashed forward and attempted to grab Dosu. The Oto Genin just barely managed to jump away before he landed and attempted to use his melody arm on Misumi. But the Konoha shinobi made another attempt to grab Dosu again, this time grabbing him and wrapping his body around the mummified boy like a snake. Surprised? Misumi asked. My special ability allows me to disconnect my joints and let me coil around you like a snake. This won't be able to hold me forever, Dosu stated, already working on his escape plan. I don't have to, just give up before I decide to snap your neck, Misumi stated as he tightened his hold on the Oto shinobi to make his point. How about, no? Dosu asked. The next thing everyone saw was Misumi falling to the floor in agony as he tried to direct his arms to cover his ears, but his pain prevented him from properly molding his chakra. I don't get it, what happened? Tenten asked. It most likely has something to do with that shuriken next to him, Niji pointed out. Confused? Dosu chuckled. Don't worry, I'll explain it. You see, while you were rambling on about your little stretching ability, I managed to grab one of my hidden shuriken from my left sleeve and flick it into the air where it would land on my melody arm that you so graciously uncovered for me. The contact of metal on metal created sound waves that I directed into your inner ear. He then faced Kushina and said he'll be out of it for a while, though it looks like he's having a hard time pulling himself together as it is. Dosu is the winner, Kushina declared, seeing that Misumi wouldn't be able to get up. Several stretchers were brought out to carry him out since he was stretched out to the max. Whoa, that's a scary ability, Naruto said. I guess those Oto guys take their village name seriously, Kakashi said. I know that there are a few jutsu out there that involve screaming, roaring, and the like, but I never expected there to be jutsu that use sound waves. Yeah, didn't you say that you encountered someone who could do some kind of shrieking attack? Kurenai asked. Kakashi nodded and turned to Guy. Hey Guy, remember that mission where we fought some Iwa shinobi that were after a scroll we were delivering to Suna? The spandex-wearing Jonin nodded and said, yes, that was an unyouthful group with a very unyouthful jutsu. I couldn't hear properly for a week. Kakashi chuckled and said, I think Pakken had it worse. Hey, Fu said, check out who's next. Everyone looked up to see the next pair of fighters. Hinata Hyuga versus Kankuro Sabaku. Alright Hinata-chan, you're up. Naruto shouted. If you win, then all of Team 8 will be in the finals, Shino said. And I'll be able to brag about this for a long time. Kurenai thought with glee. I'll do my best, the Hyuga heir said with determination. Kankuro smirked as he saw his opponent walk down the stairs. Looks like I get a weakling. Temari scoffed, it's an attitude like that makes you lose all the time. Kankuro rolled his eyes and said, please, all of the strong Konoha guys already fought, now we're left with the runts. Kankuro, Gaara said in a cold voice, if you keep talking like that, I'll kill you. Kankuro paled and raced down to the arena and stood across from Hinata. Are both of you ready? Kushina asked. Yes, Hinata replied. Yeah, Kankuro told her. Then begin. Kushina said as she jumped away. Hinata instantly activated her Byakugan and entered the Juken stance. Kankuro merely took the wrapped bundle off of his back and placed it next to him. He doesn't have any chakra. Hinata thought as she took a good look at Kankuro. She then noticed strings of chakra coming from his body and going into the bundle where it had a faint blue glow. A sign of chakra. She then used her Byakugan to look at the Kankuro standing before her. She was able to see right through the disguise and see a wooden puppet with 4 arms, shaggy hair, a tattered robe, and 3 eyes staring blankly back at her. So he's one of those puppet users I read about, Hinata thought. Judging from how the bundle has chakra coming out of it, I can guess that the real one is hiding inside. So if I dash towards the puppet first, I can take him by surprise. Hinata dashed forwards and Kankuro tensed as she came near. Right as he was about to throw a punch at her, Hinata turned on her heel and started to attack the bundle next to the fake Suna ninja. Gah! The real Kankuro cried out as Hinata started to target the available Tenketsu. The fake Kankuro fell to the ground as the real one jumped out of the wrappings to avoid any more damage. He already couldn't feel anything in his left arm as it took most of the hits. How did you know I was in there? Kankuro questioned as he glared at the heiress. My Byakugan saw that your puppet had no chakra system and that there were several strings of chakra attached to several joints on its body. I also saw that the strings were coming from the bundle that you had the puppet place next to it, Hinata explained. TCH, guess I actually get a good opponent, Kankuro muttered as he reached out with his right arm and sent out chakra strings to the puppet. Hinata noticed this and used her Juken to destroy the strings before she dashed towards Kankuro. Kankuro jumped back as Hinata started to attack. He would quickly move side to side in order to avoid her attacks. Every time he tried to send some chakra strings to the puppet, Hinata would destroy them. The older Suna shinobi was starting to get frustrated with this and decided to go on the attack. He threw a punch at Hinata, but the dead weight of his useless left arm made him stumble a little, and Hinata capitalized on that. She slid past the weak blow and began to deliver a number of strikes to Kankuro's Tenketsu. The Suna nin didn't stand a chance as Hinata closed off the chakra points in his remaining arm and legs. 8 trigrams, 32 palms. 2 palms. 4 palms. 8 palms. 16 palms. 32 palms. Proctor, he won't be able to move, Hinata said as Kankuro stood there. To prove her point, she gently poked on him, and the small amount of force made him fall backwards onto the floor. Hinata is the winner, Kushina declared. Hinata walked back up the steps where she was congratulated by her fellow ninja. She was then wrapped up in a hug by an ecstatic Naruto who was very happy that she won. Kurenai was giggling to herself about how every member of her team made it into the finals. "Congratulations, Hinata-chan." Naruto cheered. Hinata giggled and returned the hug with a light blush on her cheeks. "Well, at least one Konoha Kunoichi made it," Kakashi said. Indeed, Hinata-san was very youthful. Guy bellowed. Did you say something?" Kakashi asked as he flipped a page in his book. "Gah! You and your hip and cool attitude." Guy wailed. Everyone just sweat-dropped as they watched the Jonin's antics. "He's gotten weirder since I left," Orochimaru thought. Ino Yamanaka vs Kintsuchi. Yes! Now I can go into the finals with Sasuke-kun and show him how strong I am. Ino declared with a fire in her eyes. Shikamaru just looked over and muttered, "Troublesome," under his breath. Across the arena, Kin sighed. "Why do I have to fight a fangirl? Did I do something wrong to deserve this?" Dosu chuckled and said, "Look at it this way, you get an easy win." He chuckled even more when Kin gave him an annoyed look. "And I wonder why you're the only one I can stand?" Kin asked herself as she walked down to the arena. Ino was already there with a hand on her hip and tapping her foot in an impatient manner. "Geez, could you go any slower?" Ino asked. Kin rolled her eyes and said, "I could, but I decided to get down here quickly so I could end this pathetic fight." "Are both fighters ready?" Kushina asked. "I'm ready to go." Ino roared. "Let's go," Kin said. "Begin," Kushina said as she jumped back a small distance. Kin started off the fight by throwing a few senbon needles at Ino. The blonde was stunned for a moment before she jumped back, however, one needle managed to hit her in the thigh. "What's the matter? Can't handle a little needle?" Kin taunted as she pulled out a new set and held them between her closed fingers. "I'll show you," Ino yelled as she pulled out several shuriken and threw them at the Oto Kunoichi. Kin just jumped to the side before she placed her hands on her hips. "Wow, what a throw," Kin smirked. That was slightly better than an academy student who was just starting out. She then threw another batch of senbon at Ino, but the Yamanaka girl was able to avoid them as they stuck themselves into the wall behind her. She then turned her head back as she heard a small jingle of bells and saw that one of the senbon had a bell attached to it. "You're going to use that old trick?" Ino scoffed. "What trick is she talking about?" Kiba asked. "It's an old trick with senbon," Kakashi answered. People who would use senbon would sometimes tie a bell onto a few of them and throw them with regular senbon. They would use this tactic so that they could trick their opponents to dodging only the senbon that have the bells on them, because they would instinctively dodge the ones that make noise. Back at the arena floor, Kin smiled as she saw Ino reach into her pouch and pull out a kunai. "Oh? Are you going to throw some kunai at me now?" Ino responded by charging forward and stabbing her kunai at the Oto Kunoichi. Kin moved to the side and jabbed at Ino with a fistful of senbon. She scrapped the Yamanaka on the arm and jumped back as Ino flipped her kunai into a reverse grip and jabbed her hand backwards. Kin then threw her senbon at Ino and managed to hit her in the shoulder. "Ow! What the hell was that?" Ino yelled as she pulled out the needle and rubbed her shoulder. "What happened?" Shino asked as he observed the fight. Naruto discreetly activated his Sharingan and narrowed his eyes. "Looks like she's charging her chakra into the senbon, and it looks like she's using lightning." "You're right," Kakashi said as he observed Kin with his Sharingan. "She's using lightning chakra and pumping it into her senbon. She's using them to deliver small bursts of electricity into Ino. Like a static shock," Hinata suggested. "Correct," Kakashi nodded, "but this hurts a bit more than that." Down below, Ino had dodged another set of senbon, a bell mixed into the group, and was glaring at her opponent. "So, this is your limit?" Kin taunted. You're a disgrace to kunoichi everywhere, just like your pink-haired friend. So far, only that blue-haired Hyuga and the one with her hair in buns have done Konoha kunoichi and justice. That's it. Ino yelled as she raised her kunai and cut off her ponytail, holding the blonde locks in her free hand. Kin raised an eyebrow as she threw the hair in the space between them, effectively covering the arena floor. Is this supposed to mean something? Kin asked as she raised her hands to throw more senbon. Chakra hair trap technique. Ino cried as she sent a pulse of chakra through the hair. Kin's eyes widened as she felt her whole body freeze up. What? Kin cried as she struggled to move, only being allowed to weakly twitch. Now for the main event, Ino said as she put her hands in a seal and used it like a scope to aim at Kin. What are you going to do? Kin asked as she struggled to move. Simple, Ino began, I'm going to take over your mind and make you forfeit the match. Wow! Ino's got this in the bag. Choji exclaimed. Asuma nodded behind him in agreement. Is that right? Kin asked with a devious smirk on her face. Well, how are you going to do that if you can't aim right? Ha! Was all Ino could get out before she heard a ringing noise from behind her. She looked back and saw the single bell on the senbon that was stuck in the wall behind her. She then felt a pain in her head and turned back to see that Kin had multiplied and that Ino herself was starting to lose control of her body. What did you do? Ino groaned as she struggled to get a hold of herself. Simple, all of the Kins said at once. What I noticed was that your little hair trap couldn't stop me completely, so I was able to twitch my hand, which had a wire connected to the bell behind you. With the sound waves that it's producing, I'm able to affect you with my genjutsu, preventing you from aiming at me. Ugh, that ringing's causing me pain even from up here, Kiba complained. Akamaru and Naruto nodding in agreement while holding their own ears. So go ahead and try to hit me with your little jutsu, if you can tell which one's the real me, that is, Kin taunted. Shikamaru sighed, I don't think Ino's gonna win this one. I might have beat her if I found the wire and connected my shadow with it to control her. Looks like Hinata's going to be the only Konoha kunoichi going to the finals, Asuma sighed. Kurenai patted his shoulder in a comforting manner. If I hit the wrong one, I'll be out of it until my mind finds its way back to my body and I'll still lose. Ino thought. I forfeit, Ino said as she held her head in pain. The ringing stopped and Ino weakly got up. Ino Yamanaka forfeits, Kintsuchi is the winner, Kushina said. Better luck next time, Kin said as she collected her needles and went back up the balcony. Ino hung her head as she trudged up the stairs and walked over to her team. They tried to comfort her for her defeat, but were unable to. Just when it seemed that Ino would stay silent for the rest of the preliminaries, Hinata walked up to her and gave her a slap on the cheek. What was that for? Ino cried as she rubbed her red cheek. I'm sorry Ino-chan, Hinata started, but I needed to do that to snap you out of your little depression. You did really well out there, it doesn't matter that you lost, as long as you did your best, that's all that matters. Ino gave her a small smile and hugged the Hyuga heiress. Thanks Hinata-chan, I needed that. Ino released the younger girl and walked back to her team with a small smile on her face. How fitting, a failure helping another failure, Niji sneered. Hinata turned to him and gave him an uncharacteristic glare that made him take a step back. I don't care if you insult me Niji and I-san, but insult my friends, and I won't hesitate to attack you, Hinata said in an eerily calm tone. Niji wisely shut up and turned back to his team. Hinata let out a breath and turned around to see the other rookie teams staring at her with wide eyes. What? She asked as she tilted her head to the side. Rock Lee vs. Garasabaku. Wosh. It is time to express my youth. Lee cheered. Lee, before you go down there, I have some good advice for you, Guy said as he knelt down to his student's level. There's something very suspicious about that gourd on his back, Guy said. Everyone's sweat dropped as they heard this. No, really? was the collective thought of the entire room. I shall take your advice to heart, Guy-sensei, Lee said as he jumped down to the arena where Gaara was already waiting. As soon as he landed, he put his arm in front of him as there was a popping noise. Lee opened his hand and dropped a cork. Everyone looked and saw that the cork from Gaara's gourd was missing. I see that you are very eager to start this match, Lee said. Attack before I start this match again and I'll lop off one of your limbs, Kushina threatened as she pushed up the blade of her katana from its sheath with her thumb. Gaara shivered before backing up a bit. Kushina sheathed her sword with a click and stood before the two genin. Are bot fighters ready? She asked. I am ready, Lee stated. Let's get this over with, Gaara grunted. Begin. Kushina shouted as she jumped back. Lee raced towards Gaara and began a series of kicks that were intercepted by a wall of sand that shot out of the gourd and fell around Gaara, leaving him in a circle. Gaara then started his counterattack and sent out a stream of sand to crush Lee. The spandex-wearing genin leapt back and landed in a crouch before moving again to avoid the sand. Lee leapt behind Gaara and threw several shuriken at the redhead, only for the sand to block them on its own. Gaara didn't even twitch. Why doesn't he use any ninjutsu or genjutsu? Fu asked. Hinata activated her Byakugan and took a good look at Lee's chakra system. His chakra pathways are underdeveloped. He can use chakra to use walk on trees and water, but I don't think he can do anything other than taijutsu. Correct, Guy said, his eyes never leaving the match. Lee cannot use ninjutsu or genjutsu. So he has decided to become a wonderful shinobi just by using taijutsu. Down below, Lee was picking himself off of the floor after being knocked away by the sand. He looked back at Gaara with a fire burning in his eyes, showing how determined he was to win this fight. You are a wonderful opponent, Gaara-san, Lee said as he got back up. Gaara said nothing but looked back at him with an impassive stare. Lee frowned at Gaara's lack of words, but didn't let it deter him. He's not fast enough to get through the sand shield, Naruto said. If he were able to hit it hard enough, he could make the sand disperse long enough to hit him. Guy nodded at this and shouted to Lee, Lee, take them off. Lee looked up at his sensei in surprise. But, Guy-sensei, you said to always keep them on. This time I'm making an exception, Guy told him as he flashed him a smile as his teeth pinged. Lee nodded and leapt into the air and landed on the stone hands. He reached down and removed his orange leg warmers to reveal weights on his legs. Weights? Ino asked. He's been wearing weights this whole time. Looks like he takes his training seriously. Wonder how much they weigh. Shino said. Alright, now I'm ready. Lee said as he stood up and held both sets of weights in his hands before he let them drop. A few weights aren't going to make a difference, Temari thought as she watched them fall. The weights hit the ground on either side of Kushina with a thundering crash and sent up a giant cloud of dust on both sides of the stone hands, making the elder Uzumaki shriek in surprise. Everyone's eyes widened and almost fell out of their heads. Guy, you are too much, Kakashi thought as he sighed. Lee vanished in a burst of speed and Gaara's sand flew up to block the Konoha Genin, but the formation of the sand was destroyed as the force of the hit sent the grains flying and Lee's fist came within inches of Gaara's face. Gaara's eyes widened as he started to look around with shock in his eyes as the sand shield was being blown apart. Looks like this kid's going to actually break Shikaku's Suna no Tate, Kyubi said as he watched the match through Naruto's eyes. Gaara's defense was being blown apart by Lee's fast and strong attacks. He kept looking around as he tried to understand how his absolute defense was failing him. The next thing he knew, there was a force on his head that forced him to bend at the waist. Gaara's been hit. Temari cried. Baki was gapping at the sight while the Konoha shinobi cheered. Lee rushed at Gaara as the Suna Genin sent a wave of sand to destroy Lee, but he vanished at the last second and began to attack Gaara's defense. Soon he kicked Gaara in the cheek and sent the Suna Genin to the floor. I can just barely keep track of him, Naruto exclaimed as he watched the match with wide eyes. However, He was able to keep track of Lee with his Mangekyo as it was hidden under a genjutsu. Gaara got back up slowly, obviously never having been used to getting hit before if his grunts were any indication. Everyone saw that there was sand falling from his face as he held a crazed expression. "There's another shield!" Tenten cried. "He's getting unstable," Temari whispered as she gripped the handrail tightly. She and Kankuro shared a look of worry as they watched the sand begin to collect on his body. "Looks like that armor takes quite a bit of chakra," Kakashi said as he looked at the fighters with his Sharingan. Lee then began to unravel his bandages after seeing Guy give him a nod. Lee then vanished in a blur and began to circle Gaara as a whirlwind surrounded him. Lee then sped up and kicked Gaara in the chin, sending the redhead up into the air. Lee gave him more kicks, sending Gaara higher into the air as the sand reached up towards the two. Lee then cringed while Guy closed his eyes in prayer, before Lee wrapped his bandages around Gaara before he drove him into the ground head first. "Omote Renge!" Lee cried as the two hit the ground, creating a massive explosion of smoke and debris. Lee landed just outside the impact zone, breathing heavily, as everyone saw the motionless Gaara in the crater. "He did it!" Choji cried. "Wrong," Naruto said as he narrowed his eyes. Kushina stepped forward to Gaara and looked down at him. Just then, Gaara turned to sand and fell apart. "When did he do the Kawarimi?" Guy cried. Kakashi turned to him and said, "When you closed your eyes to pray." Lee cringed out of pain. "That's when the switch happened." Gaara then appeared out of a sand cloud behind Lee with a crazed chuckle. Temari and Kankuro hugged each other out of fear when they heard him. Gaara made a single hand seal and the sand burst into action, attacking Lee as he tried to defend himself. Lee was battered around and eventually thrown into the wall as a large wave of sand smashed him. Lee was constantly bashed around as Gaara threw him around. Eventually, Lee regained his mobility and was able to dodge all of Gaara's attacks while having a smile on his face. "How is he able to keep going?" Hinata asked. "Because the Konoha lotus blooms twice," Guy told her proudly. "Guy! Did you really teach a genin such a dangerous technique?" Kakashi yelled. Guy's gaze never left the arena as he spoke to Kakashi. "You heard me say it before, Kakashi, taijutsu is the only way for Lee to become a shinobi. He showed a great talent for it and is skilled with it." "How many of the Hashimen can he open?" Kakashi asked. 5, Guy told him. "Kakashi-sensei, what is he talking about?" Kiba asked. Kakashi turned to his student and explained, "What Guy is talking about is the Hashimen, or the 8 inner gates, a series of tenketsu on the body that greatly increase chakra flow in the body. They are the Kaimon, Kyomon, Simon, Shomon, Tomon, Keimon, Kaiamon, and Shimon. Each gate grants you a burst of power, and by opening all of the Hashimen you can gain a power far greater than any of the 5 Kage." "I'm sensing a but in there," Shino interjected. "Correct, the more gates you open, the more your body is strained. Prolonged use of the Hashimen can lead to the tearing of your muscles. And once you open the final gate, you die. You shouldn't have done that, Guy. Are you trying to kill your own student?" Kakashi shouted. "You know nothing about Lee." Guy shouted back. "He is determined to become a wonderful shinobi using only taijutsu, and I am going to help him reach it." "The condition has been met," Lee thought as he crossed his arms. A burst of chakra exploded from him, drawing shocked looks from most of the room's occupants. Gaara remained as impassive as ever. The air around Lee shook as his body began to turn red and veins popped out of his skin. "To defend my ninja way." Lee was exerting so much chakra, the ground around him began to crack. Kushina took a big step back as she was watching the whole event. Lee vanished in a large burst of speed and crashed into Gaara as he began to attack him. Lee's attacks created so much dust that it was blown all around the arena, effectively blinding all of the combatants. Except for Shino because of his shades. When the dust cleared, everyone looked and saw that the arena was empty. Where did they go? Naruto cried as everyone began to look around. Above! Fu cried as she spotted Gaara shooting out of the dust cloud. The sand on his skin began to crack and fall away as Gaara tried desperately to hold it together. Lee appeared above Gaara and began to kick him around in the air with devastating blows. His muscles are tearing themselves apart. Kakashi exclaimed as he saw Lee begin to struggle with his movements. That's gonna be a tough one to heal, Tsunade said as she watched the match with wide eyes. She had seen Guy open the Hashiman before, but he was a Jonin by then. Seeing Lee, a Genin, open them was just shocking. Take a look at what I have in store for you, Niji. Lee cried in his thoughts as he approached Gaara for a final blow. Lee vanished in another burst of speed and sent Gaara to the ground with a punch to the gut. But Lee grabbed Gaara's strap and pulled him back to deliver a shattering punch to Gaara. You're a wrench! Lee cried as he and Gaara crashed towards the ground. I couldn't see a thing. Even with the Mangekyo. Naruto shouted in surprise. Such incredible power. You wouldn't expect such skill from a Genin. Kyubi exclaimed. Lee then pulled back as the pain in his arm became unbearable. Gaara's gourd then turned into sand and cushioned the impact. Gaara! Temari and Kankuro cried as they watched with wide eyes. The dust settled and everyone saw that Gaara laying on a cushion of sand. Lee was laying on his back a few feet away. Gaara raised his hand and directed the sand towards Lee. The sand moved towards Lee as he tried to move away, but the pain was too much and he was a sitting duck. The sand enveloped his left arm and leg. Sabaku Q, Gaara whispered as he closed his hand. The sand crushed Lee's arm and leg and sent Lee skidding across the ground until he laid there motionless. Now you die, Gaara said as he sent a wave of sand at Lee. But the wave exploded outwards and revealed Guy as he stood there defending his student. Why save him? Gaara asked as he clutched his head in pain. Because he's my precious student, Guy answered. Gaara said nothing as he walked away, the gourd reforming as he walked. The winner is, Kushina began to say before she looked over. Everyone followed her gaze and saw that Lee was standing there, his limbs shaking, and blood dripping from his left arm and leg. Guy walked over to him and began to tell him that the match was over until he saw that Lee was unconscious. He's out cold, Kakashi said as he slid his headband back over his Sharingan. He's standing up due to willpower alone. The winner, due to knockout, is Gaara, Kushina said. Tsunade-sama. Hurry. He needs immediate attention. Tsunade jumped down to the arena and began to help Lee. His breathing is steady, no internal organs were damaged. He's got a lot muscle tears and fragmented bones, but I'll be able to fix them. He'll need some rehabilitation in order to use them properly. His left arm and leg are heavily damaged. I'll be able to heal him since the damage was only recent and his body hasn't tried to heal itself yet, but it'll be a long time before he could be able to use them properly. Shizune! Tsunade yelled. Her apprentice appeared before her instantly. Head to the hospital and prepare a room for surgery. This boy needs medical attention ASAP. Hi Tsunade-sama. Shizune said as she raced to the hospital. You! Tsunade shouted as she pointed to Guy. Grab the other end of this stretcher, we're going to get your student to the hospital now. Double time. Hi Tsunade-sama. Guy shouted as they lifted the stretcher with Lee on it and raced out the door. Why did she say it was due to a knockout? Naruto asked. Technically, Lee was unconscious after his left side was crushed, so Guy only interfered after the match was unofficially over, Kurenai said. Plus, Asuma added, I think she knows that Lee would rather have lost due to a knockout rather than having lost due to Guy's interference. Poor Guy, I hope he gets better, Shikamaru said. Alright, then will the last two fighters come down? Kushina asked. Choji Akimichi vs Fu of Taki. Of course, they saved the best for last, Fu said as she leapt down into the arena. Alright Choji, if you win this, I'll take you out for an all-you-can-eat buffet, Asuma said. Bring on the barbecue. Choji roared as flames appeared in his eyes. He raced down the steps and stood across from Fu as she rotated her shoulder. Are both fighters ready? Kushina asked. I'm ready, Choji said. So am I, Fu said as she moved a lock of green hair out of the way. Then begin. Kushina jumped away for the last time as the final match went underway. Baika no Jutsu. Choji pumped chakra through his body. His body expanded, making his girth grow quite a bit. How is making yourself fatter going to help? Fu asked herself. Unknown to her, this was the thoughts of all the other teams, except for Team 10. Now to win that barbecue. Choji exclaimed as his limbs and head retracted into his body. Chakra then came out of the retracted areas and propelled him forward until he was spinning like a giant boulder. Nikuden Sensha. Fu's eyes widened as the green human boulder came barreling towards her. She leapt out of the way, and Choji just turned to follow her. Fu took out a few kunai and threw them at the Konoha Genin. They just bounced off of him as he was moving too fast. Guess this calls for some improvisation, Fu said as she made a few hand seals and took in a deep breath. Haiden, Rinpungakure no Jutsu. Fu exhaled a large amount of dust that filled the majority of the arena. Kushina jumped up and landed on the stone hands as she waved the dust out of her masked face. Interesting, it looks like a version of the Kirigakure no Jutsu, Kakashi noted. Except that this version seems to reflect light, Naruto pointed out. Indeed, the dust was shining brightly as the light from the ceiling reflected on it. The reflective properties of the powder were effectively blinding, and messed up Choji's sense of direction, making him crash into a wall. Choji had to turn himself back to normal in order to pull himself out. What the heck is this? Choji asked himself. A special jutsu that only I can use, Fu's voice answered. She's right, Kyubi answered. She's using the Nanabai scale powder as a hiding jutsu. That bug would use his scale powder to hide during a battle. Down in the arena, Choji was trying to look through the powder and find his opponent. The next thing he knew, he was hit in the back as Fu vanished into the dust again. The same thing happened multiple times and Choji was then knocked out of the cloud. Seeing that there was no more use for it since he was out, Fu dispelled the dust cloud. Choji weakly got up and saw that Fu stood above him with a kunai in her hands. Seeing no way out of it, Choji sighed and said, I surrender. The winner is Fu, Kushina said. Now will all the winners of the matches please come down. While everyone walked down to the arena floor, Fu pulled Choji to his feet. Hey, nice match. I didn't think that I would have to use my Rinpigakure no Jutsu, she said. This cheered Choji up a bit and he walked back to his team with a small smile on his face. Congratulations to all of you for your victories here today, Hiruzen said as he stood before the group. Now you will all have a month to train and develop new abilities before the finals. Why so long? Dosu asked. Because we need to give our important guests time to get here, and we will be sending invitations to your village leaders to come and see your all fight. Now please come up one at a time and take a number from this box. 6. Shikamaru told Enko as she was writing down the numbers. 3. Shino. 12. Kin. 1. Hinata. 5. Tamari. 4. Dosu. 9. Naruto. He looked around and saw the snickering faces of the ones who realized the irony. The Kyubi was roaring in laughter at it. 8. Yujito. Killer Bee snickered seeing that she had his number. 7. Fu. She wondered if there was a higher power playing a joke on her. I am. 11. Gara. 2. Niji. 10. Kakashi said as he drew for Sasuke, who was still recovering from the ceiling. Alright, Anko said as she sent the results to the board controllers. Everyone take a look at the screen for the results. Match 1, Hinata Hyuga vs Niji Hyuga. Match 2, Shino Aburame vs Dosu Kinyuta. Match 3, Temari Sabaku vs Shikamaru Nara. Match 4, Fu of Taki vs Yujito Ni. Match 5, Naruto Uzumaki vs Sasuke Uchiha. Match 6, Gaara Sabaku vs Kin Tsuchi. Niji and Iison, Hinata thought sadly as she saw the pleased grin that Niji wore. He was grinning at the prospect of getting revenge on the main branch. This may be challenging, Shino and Dosu thought, each of them thinking of ways to counter the other's abilities. Troublesome, I have to fight another girl, Shikamaru muttered. Unfortunately for him, Temari heard what he said and sent him a dark glare. Fu and Yujito looked at each other and grinned, excited at the prospect of testing their abilities against each other. Naruto grinned as he pictured himself giving Sasuke a good thrashing. Kakashi gulped as he shook a little in fear. Not fear for his student, but fear for Naruto when the whole village sees whatever he would do to Sasuke. Kin gulped rather loudly as she stole a glance at Gaara, who thankfully didn't turn her way. She'd have to come up with something clever if she wanted to live. Later, Hokage's office. Thank you again, Kushina, for proctoring the preliminaries, Hiruzen said. With Hiate's sickness getting treated by Tsunade, I didn't want to stress him and make all that work go to waste. It was nothing, Kushina said as she waved the Sandaime off. I think that was a good call due to all the dust that was flying around from all that fighting. I must be a psychic if I could have a feeling like that, the Hokage chuckled. As Kushina prepared to leave, Naruto walked in and gave the two a look. One that said that there was some things that needed to be talked about. Hi Sochi, I was just about to head back to the compound to congratulate you on making it to the finals, Kushina said cheerfully. Can we put that on hold for right now, Ka-chan? Naruto asked. Why? Kushina wondered. There are a few things that need to be talked about, Naruto said as he sat down in the other chair. Hokage's office. So what did you want to talk about, Naruto? Hiruzen asked. First, can you put up a privacy seal? Naruto asked. Hiruzen made a hand motion and sent away his Anbu guards before activating the privacy seals under his desk. Behind the bookcase, there's an Anbu that didn't leave, Kyubi said. There's an Anbu behind the bookcase, Naruto said. Hiruzen's eyes widened and he vanished in a burst of speed and yanked the hidden Anbu out into the open and threw him to the ground. Root, Hiruzen muttered as he saw the mask. He called back his Anbu to have him taken away to Ibiki and Inoichi. You've grown stronger, Naruto, I didn't even sense him, Hiruzen praised. Maybe your senses have dulled from sitting behind that chair all day, Kushina said. There's that too, the Sandaime muttered as he cried anime tears. So what did you want to talk about, Sochi? Kushina asked. Naruto took a deep breath and said, in the Forest of Death, when my team encountered that Kiri group, one of them made an interesting accusation. What kind of accusation? Hiruzen asked, already having an idea as to what it was. Naruto merely walked around the desk and stood underneath the picture of the yandere. We have a very similar appearance, don't we? Naruto asked. Hiruzen sighed. So you found out, didn't you? It did help that Kyubi was bashing his head against the cage while shouting, and I quote, I should have known over and over, Naruto said. You make it sound worse than it was. Kyubi muttered. I always thought that I had some kind of resemblance to the yandere, Naruto said. After I found out that I was the Kyubi Jinchuriki, I thought that the ceiling might have changed my appearance. But now, I actually have an answer. Naruto, I wanted to tell you about your father, I really did, but you were already in so much danger that I didn't want to put an even bigger target on your back, Hiruzen said. I was planning on telling you after you became Chunin. I felt that you would be able to handle the responsibility. I figured as much, Kyubi and I talked about why it would have been hidden from me, and this was the reason he pointed out, Naruto informed them. Though, I can see why I wasn't told, it still hurts me a little. I thought that you knew of us at first, Kushina said. Minato had a Kage Bunshin leave a note to Sandaime-sama to tell him about who we were. What note? Hiruzen asked. I never found any note. Kushina raised an eyebrow. It's behind Minato-kun's picture. Hiruzen got up and moved the Yandame's picture, but didn't find anything. I looked here a couple days after the attack, but I never found anything, he said. And there still isn't anything here, not even a seal. But, I know Minato-kun left a note here, Kushina told him. Maybe it was taken, Naruto suggested. Most likely, though I don't have any idea as to who would take it, Hiruzen said. Anyway, I do have some good news for you, Naruto. I think that there's an excellent teacher for you in the village. Who is it? Naruto asked enthusiastically. One of my students, Jiraiya of the Sannin, Hiruzen said with a hint of pride in his voice. Jiraiya? You mean the Gama Sennin that Minato and I asked to be my Sochi's godfather but only saw him twice from what Hitomi-chan told me? Kushina asked with a sweet smile as an image of the Shinigami appeared behind her. Crap! I just killed Jiraiya. Hiruzen panicked. He just remembered how angry Kushina was when he had to tell her that Jiraiya hasn't stepped foot in the village ever since bringing Tsunade with him, as far as he knew. I have a godfather? Naruto asked. The Shinigami behind Kushina gave a sweet smile of its own as it cleaned the knife that was in its mouth as it heard the young Uzumaki's question. The Sandaime just paled and thanked Kami that Kushina wasn't going after him. Hyuga compound. Hinata sighed as she stood outside the council chambers. She had to listen to those old windbags tell her not to embarrass the Hyuga when she loses to Niji. She could tell that her father was just barely restraining himself from delivering a Juken strike to their heads and liquefying their brains. She was tired, exhausted, and frustrated. All Hinata wanted to do was go to the hot springs and wash away all the dirt, grime, and her worries. Maybe she would go with Hanabi or her mother, company was always good to have. Just as she was starting to relax, Niji just had to cross paths with her as he was on his way to her father's office. Hinata-sama, Niji said with a clipped tone, just drop out of the exams now so you don't embarrass the Hyuga image. She had it. She was frustrated and she wasn't about to take any more of Niji's attitude. The only embarrassment here is you, Niji, Hinata said with a calm rage. Niji, detecting this anger, wisely took a step back. Now please leave me alone, I am tired, frustrated, and in need of a good soak in the hot springs. So if you wish to remain healthy for your meeting with Tusama, I suggest you go, now. Having never seen this side of Hinata before, Niji decided that it was in the best interest of his health to go away, while walking at a fast pace. Only moments after that event did Hinata realize what she did and was completely shocked. Looks like my little sunny place is standing up for herself. Hinata turned around to see Hitomi there with a proud smirk on her face. Kaa-san, what did I just do? Hinata asked, wondering if she really said something like that to Niji of all people. You let out your frustration, Hitomi said in a manner like she was talking about the weather. Completely normal, especially with what you probably went through in the forest of death. I think I need to go and lie down, Hinata said. Or we could go to the hot springs, Hitomi suggested with a grin. Hinata smeed and went with her mother to collect Hanabi. Later with Kushina. The calm redhead was marching through the streets of Konoha in a henge that was enhanced by a seal on her shoulder. Her hair had changed to a brown color and was tied in a ponytail that reached to the middle of her back. Her skin was tanned a little and her eyes changed to a black color. The seal on her shoulder was designed to allow only certain people to see her normal appearance. Currently, Kushina was on a hunt of Jiraiya after she left Naruto with Hiruzen as the younger Uzumaki wanted to ask the oldest Hokage something. Where is he? Kushina growled. I've searched every brothel and whorehouse in the village. As if Kami was sending her a clue, a pair of teenage girls were walking past her while talking about how relaxing the hot springs were. And then Kushina remembered what Jiraiya's favorite hobby was, so she changed her direction and marched to the hot springs. 5 minutes later, Kushina arrived at the hot springs and entered the female side of the springs. It was mostly empty, the only exceptions being Hitomi, her daughters, and that Kumo Kunoichi Yujito. Kushina extended her senses, and found Jiraiya just outside the wall, peeking on the females. Hitomi was relaxing in the springs with her daughters and a Kumo Kunoichi. Of course she was at first very wary considering what had happened on Hinata's 3rd birthday, but the girl explained that it was a plot conceived by corrupt council members who wanted Kumo to have every bloodline in the world. She explained that the Raikage has been unable to find every member of the guilty party, and that they've been bribing several Kumo shinobi into trying to steal a Byakugan. Hitomi relaxed at this, but was still wary of the girl. In the corner of her vision, she saw a flash of red and discreetly looked over to see Kushina waving her over. "Hinata-chan," Hitomi said, "can you go inside and see if I brought my lavender perfume? I forgot that I was invited for dinner later." Hinata got up and wrapped herself in a towel before walking inside. She looked around for her mother's bag before she saw Kushina waving her over. "Kushina-san? What are you doing here?" Hinata asked. "I'm on the hunt for Naruto-kun's godfather. I just found out that he's in the village and is currently spying on you girls in there," Kushina explained. Hinata squeaked and tightened her gi on the towel covering her body. Seeing the girl's distress, Kushina placed her hands on Hinata's shoulders and said, "Don't worry, this just gives me another reason to beat his ass into a coma. Just tell Hitomi-chan that she accidentally brought her, what was that code word again? Oh, I got it. She brought her, watchful toad, perfume." Hinata nodded and took several deep breaths and tried to forget about the fact that there was a pervert spying on her, her sister, her mother, and a new friend. Hinata walked out and slowly made her way into the water, after removing her towel and placing it near her for emergency cover. "Ka-chan," Hinata said in a soft tone that signaled to Hitomi that something had embarrassed her. Thankfully, Hanabi and Yujito were too relaxed to notice. "You brought watchful toad, Pephram instead." Recognizing the code word that she, Kushina, and Mikoto made for whenever Jiraiya was peeping, Hitomi realized what was going to happen. And she didn't feel any sorrow for the pervert. Kushina silently crept along the outer wall of the hot springs as she made her way to Jiraiya. After a few minutes of searching, she saw him. Perched on top of a large toad, who looked like he was ashamed for being with his summoner, was a man with long spiky white hair. He was wearing a green kimono shirt and matching pants underneath a red haori. There was a large scroll on his back, and there were hand guards along with mesh armor on his arms and legs. He had red lines going down his cheeks from under his eyes, and a horned headband with the kanji for oil on it. Currently, the Sannin was giggling as he looked through the peephole that he had made. He was also writing things down in a little notebook. Kushina took a peek and saw that they were measurements, specifically of bust, waist, and butt sizes. The only good thing was that Jiraiya only seemed to be taking Hitomi's sizes. Well, one of his own peeping rules is 21 or older, Kushina thought. She then crept up behind him and started to release a small amount of Ki before slowly increasing it. Eventually the Ki became very intense and Jiraiya slowly turned around before his eyes went wide in fear. "Nice to see you again, Jiraiya." Several minutes earlier Jiraiya sighed. My, what wonderful curves," Jiraiya giggled as he looked through the peephole in the wall. "Hitomi's really grown since my last visit." "Well, it has been over a decade since you've last been here, Gamma," the toad Jiraiya was sitting on said as he gazed up at the Gamma Sennin with a bored expression. "True, very true," Jiraiya agreed. "Well, since I'm here now, I guess I can start teaching Naruto." "As in Minato-kun's and Kushina-chan's son?" "The Kyuubi Jinchuriki. Your godson? That Naruto?" Gamma asked, with a scolding tone. Alright, so I left the brat here in the village. Besides, he had Sensei and Tsunade to look after him, and I did support the brat whenever I could," Jiraiya pointed out. "Now let me go back to my research." Gamma just sighed as he stood still and let Jiraiya engage in his observation of the females inside. Gamma couldn't help but notice a familiar chakra in the area. Now, if only he could put his tongue on it. Jiraiya watched as Hitomi's oldest daughter got out of the bath and walked into the changing room after wrapping herself in a towel. The perverted Sannin pulled away from the peephole as soon as she got up until he heard that she returned. He may be a pervert, but he had standards. When he was younger, then he would peep on girls that were his age also. As he got older he started to only check out the ones who were at least 21. Jiraiya was many things, but pedophile was not one of them. That title belonged to Orochimaru. As Jiraiya was observing the hot springs in case any more women entered, he felt a small amount of pressure behind him. He thought nothing of it because it was so small and barely noticeable. But as time went on, the pressure grew bigger until it was almost crushing him. It didn't help that he recognized this type of pressure. It can't be. She died on the Kyuubi attack. But it can't be an imposter, this is her Ki. Jiraiya thought frantically. He slowly turned around to face the threat. When he fully turned around, his eyes went wide with fear. There, standing behind him, was Kushina. Her red hair was split into 9 strands that weaved through the air ominously behind her. The top half of her head was shaded by her hair, and her eyes were a bright white as they glared at him with a great rage. "Nice to see you again, Jiraiya." Kushina growled as she reached forward to grab him by the collar of his shirt. Fearing for his life, the Sannin leapt away while Gamma poofed back home as he didn't want to get in the middle of this. Turning back around, Jiraiya screamed in fright as a chakra-enhanced fist rocketed towards him. He moved out of the way just in time as the punch destroyed the tree behind him. Back in the hot springs, Yujito, Hanabi, and Hinata jumped as the sound of Jiraiya's terror filled the air, as it was followed by the sound of the tree being destroyed. "Ah, the sweet sounds of a pervert meeting his doom," Hitomi sighed. Jiraiya was running for his life as Kushina raced after him. Golden chains shot out of her back as they tried to strike the Gamma Sennin as he was running away. "Sensei! Why didn't you say anything about her being alive?" Jiraiya wailed as he dodged yet another chain. The chase continued and they eventually reached a large field that gave Jiraiya an idea on what to do. "Kuchios no Jutsu!" Jiraiya cried as he slammed his hands on the ground. A large explosion of smoke erupted, and once it cleared, a very large toad with orange skin, a blue jacket, and a sword in a scabbard on his side. The toad also had a scar running down its left eye. "Jiraiya! Why have you summoned me?" the toad demanded. Instead of answering him, Jiraiya climbed up the toad and forced his mouth open. "No time to explain. Just save me." With that, Jiraiya climbed inside of the toad's mouth. Before the toad could comprehend what happened, he was thrown onto his back by a powerful fist into his gut. "Open up, Gamabunta." Jiraiya's had this coming for a long time, Kushina said as she cracked her knuckles. "Kushina! But you died!" Gamabunta cried out. "Long story, now let me have that pervert," Kushina demanded. Not wanting to get her angry with him, Gamabunta opened up and allowed Kushina to look inside. Hanging onto one of Gamabunta's tongue piercings was Jiraiya, who screamed again as he saw Kushina glaring at him. She shot out several chains and wrapped up Jiraiya before dragging him out. Jiraiya sent the toad boss a glare for relenting so easily. All the toad could do was poof back home. "Now that we're alone, I can dish out the anger I have for you practically abandoning Naruto for over a decade," Kushina growled. Kushina then took out a frying pan. 1. Apparently it was something that scared Jiraiya greatly as he cried out in fear and struggled to get away. Kushina just walked forward and held the frying pan tightly. The sounds of Jiraiya's screams and the banging of Kushina's frying pan filled the clearing. Hokage's office after Kushina left. Naruto had just said goodbye to Kushina as she went on the hunt for Jiraiya. "So what is it that you needed, Naruto-kun?" Hiruzen asked. "I'm going to need some assistance as I go into the Uchiha compound," Naruto said plainly. "Why do you need to go in there?" Hiruzen asked. "Kyuubi can sense that the tablet the Rikudo Sennin left behind is in there," Naruto explained. He told me that the tablet contains information on the Mangekyo Sharingan and can be very valuable in helping me train with it. Well, I can't go with you myself, because there's going to be a council meeting about who made it into the finals, but I think I have the perfect people to help you, Hiruzen said. Cat! The purple-haired Anbu member appeared next to Naruto, kneeling before the Hokage. You called Hokage-sama? She asked. Yes, tell Kakashi, Kurenai, and Tsunade to come to my office please, Hiruzen ordered. Hi Hokage-sama, Kat said as she vanished in a swirl of leaves. I really want to learn that move, Naruto said. Hiruzen chuckled. Your father said the same thing the first time he saw a Shunshin. Really? Naruto asked. Indeed, you do know what made your father famous, right? He asked. Yeah, his signature jutsu, the Hiraishin, Naruto replied. He wanted to make a technique that surpassed the Shunshin. I often wondered how a fight between him and Shunshin no Shursui would turn out, Hiruzen admitted as he leaned back in his chair. Unfortunately, we will never know. Several minutes later, the two of the three requested people arrived in the office. 3 hours later, the last on arrived. I'm glad all of you could finally make it, Hiruzen said as he lit his pipe and glared at Kakashi. I need all of you to assist Naruto here with something important. Like what? Kakashi asked, his fingers itching to hold his beloved book. Unfortunately, that would result in a one-way trip to the hospital with Tsunade in the room. To put it simply, Naruto needs to get into the Uchiha compound and locate a tablet left behind by the Rikudo Sennin, Hiruzen said. And I want all of you to make sure that he can get to the tablet without running into problems. I highly doubt I can be of assistance here, Tsunade interjected. You know, stealth has never been my strong suit. I know that, but I figured that the last Senju should be given the chance to see something of her ancestry, the Sandaime told her. Tsunade nodded and stepped back. But why does Naruto need to see the tablet? Kurenai answered. In the Forest of Death, when me and my team fought the three Kiri Genin, I had unlocked the Mangekyo Sharingan by substituting myself with Hinata-chan when she was going to be stabbed, Naruto explained as he activated his Sharingan and pushed it all the way to the Mangekyo. But, that's impossible! Tsunade shouted. My grandfather told me that the only way to unlock the Mangekyo Sharingan was through extreme grief when you kill someone close to you. Actually, there are 3 ways to unlock it. Unlocking it through grief is what Kyuubi calls the cursed way since it leads to blindness, Naruto told her. I unlocked it through sacrificing myself, then it granted me an ability to save myself. I see, that actually makes sense, Tsunade said. Now then, I would also like you to copy the tablet if you can. Such knowledge should not belong to a clan of one, Hiruzen stated. Later Uchiha compound. Those cursed Uchiha placed the tablet deep within the compound. Turn to your left a little, Kyuubi said as he directed Naruto to where he could feel the energies of the tablet that was made from him and his siblings. What if we run into Sasuke-tame? Naruto asked. Don't worry, I have a Kage Bunshin with him since I need to be watching him due to Orochimaru's curse mark, Kakashi replied. You mean the hiki I saw on his neck in the preliminaries? Naruto asked. Everyone struggled to hold in their laughter as they followed the blonde. Eventually they reached a small shrine that looked like one of the temples in the village. There was a Torii gate that had the Uchiha symbol on it as it led the way to the temple. The group entered the temple and Naruto and Kakashi activated their Sharingan. There's a small flicker of chakra over there on the far right, Kakashi said as he focused his eye. Kurenai removed the tatami mat and revealed a stone slab. I can see a seal on the stone, Naruto said. It looks like a Sharingan surrounded by a sealing formula. It's a barrier seal that's meant to grant access to those who know the password to it, Kyuubi said. It's also been altered to only react to someone with Uchiha blood. So he can't open it? Jiu asked. Actually, he can, Kyuubi answered. Because Naruto took the heart of an Uchiha, the seal will recognize him and grant him access. But I'm not that good with seals, I'm only just starting to learn how to make my own explosion tags, Naruto said. Don't worry, when I was sealed inside Mito and Kushina, I was able to see their knowledge of seals. So just follow my instructions and we'll be able to get in. Naruto listened to the Kyuubi as he explained how to get in. He formed the Hibi seal and started to channel chakra into the stone slab. The Fuinjutsu on the slab became visible as it levitated off of the floor and rested behind the space it once took. The slab was guarding a hidden entrance to an underground level. The tablet's in there, Naruto said. I'll stand guard in case anyone comes by, Kurenai told them. Who knows who might be lurking about? Good call, Kakashi replied as he followed Naruto and Tsunade inside. Naruto was looking around the hidden room and saw a small area that held a stone tablet. Around the tablet were several images, most likely for decoration. I can't understand a single word, Tsunade said as she took a look at the stone. According to Kyuubi, the Sharingan and Manjikyu Sharingan can only decipher parts of it, only the Rinnegan can read all of it, Naruto told her. The Rinnegan hasn't been seen since the time of the Rikudo Sennin, Tsunade pointed out. You don't need those eyes, I can translate the tablet since I helped make it, Kyuubi said. Kyuubi says that he can translate it, Naruto told her. He then leaned forward and took a good look at the tablet so Kyuubi can see it as well. However, the following reaction was completely unexpected. What the hell is this? Kyuubi roared. This thing has been tainted. Desecrated. It's been completely altered. Shut up. Naruto yelled as he held his head. Naruto! What happened? Kakashi yelled as he helped the young Uzumaki to his feet. Ugh, Kyuubi's yelling about the tablet being changed, Naruto answered as he shook his head. An illusion. Kyuubi cried out again. This must be a fake. There's no way he would say that the curse technique would be the salvation of the world. This is a mockery of what he stood for. Blasphemy. Heresy. I demand damnation on the desecrator. Shut up. Naruto yelled as he went into his mindscape and clocked Kyuubi on the nose. Caught off guard, the giant fox stumbled backwards as he shook his head. I needed that, Kyuubi said as he took a look at his Jinchuriki, who was tending to a knocked-out Jiu. Obviously the Biju's rampage knocked out the Kaguya. Now will you please explain what the hell you're talking about? Naruto asked. Someone completely altered the tablet. While some things like the information on the Mangekyo techniques are intact, the rest of it has been changed, the Biju explained. Can it be changed back? Naruto asked. Possibly, it only looks like it's just a very powerful, yet subtle genjutsu placed over it, and the chakra that's supporting the genjutsu seems familiar somehow, Kyuubi said. He then instructed Naruto to place his hand on the tablet while he used the Kyuubi's chakra to break the genjutsu over it. After several minutes, Naruto fell down to his knees with a small amount of sweat on his forehead. Okay, I've broken the genjutsu on the tablet, so it should be back to normal, Naruto said as he took a look at the tablet again. Hey Bachan, I'm going to read the tablet, so try to copy what I say, okay? Just let me find my pen, Tsunade said as she pulled out a pen from her front pocket. Seeing that she was ready, Naruto took a deep breath and began. I never imagined that my life would turn out the way it did. I always thought that I would grow up in a peaceful world, especially since my mother was the one who began the first era of peace ever. My name is Hagoromo Otsutsuki and this is my tale. Long before I was born, my people arrived in this land in search of a home. We stumbled across this war-torn place and found a tree that had a very blessed fruit at the top. My mother, Kaguya Otsutsuki, wishing to see the fighting come to an end, climbed up the Shinju and ate the fruit. She was granted with an unimaginable power which would eventually be known as chakra. From what I was told, the fruit changed her eyes and allowed her to see long distances. It also gave her a third eye on her forehead that I often scared people, so she kept it closed a lot. Using her newfound power, my mother brought an end to the fighting and brought forth an era of peace. Eventually, she settled down and gave birth to me and my brother Hamura. Unfortunately, this peace would not last. My mother began to lose her faith in humanity and the power began to change her. She fell into madness and created a horrific technique, the infinite Tsukuyomi. By using her third eye, she would create a vast amount of light. All who were caught by the light were then trapped within a dream world of their own desires after Kaguya used the roots of the Shinju to ensnare them. For some reason, me and my brother were unaffected by the technique. Most likely due to the fact that we inherited our mother's chakra. And also her eyes. Hamura inherited her white eyes while I received purple ringed eyes. I believe I shall call it the Rinnegan due to its abilities that I shall describe later. Enraged at this, Kaguya merged with the Shinju and became a monstrous creature known as the Jubi. The beast that was once my mother devastated the earth as it fought to reclaim its chakra. After a long and grueling battle, Hamura and I managed to subdue the creature. We stole its chakra and released the world from the infinite Tsukuyomi. However, many of the people who were trapped within the dream world were absorbed by the Shinju, and became shells of their former selves that cried out for Kaguya to be their mother. Hamura and I sealed the creatures within the Jubi's empty body and created a massive construct of stone to surround it before sending it up into the sky, where it eventually became known as the Moon That. I must also give thanks to a group of summons that assisted me in battle. If it weren't for them, I fear that me and Hamura might not have been able to win as we did. They are a family of powerful beings, each with control over a specific element. They have been asleep for a long time and Kaguya's usage of the Shinju to trap the world awoke them due to the disturbance in nature. Hamura and I eventually settled down and had families of our own. We each had 2 sons. For me it was Azura and Indra, for Hamura it was Hiro and Shirudo. Indra possessed eyes that allowed him to copy any technique that used chakra, or body movements, the Sharingan, while Ashura possessed a strong connection to nature. Hiro inherited Hamura's eyes, the Byakugan, and Shirudo received the ability to manipulate his own bones, the Shikatsu Myaku. After his 2 sons went to see the world and make families of their own, my dear brother went with the rest of the Otsutsuki clan to the moon in order to protect our mother's body in case there is no way to destroy it. I almost forgot, Hamura and I tried mixing our blood to create a greater descendant. With a head covered with bright red hair, Akari was born. She was a very energetic child who possessed a strong life force and healing abilities. She even had the ability to make chains made out of chakra, something neither me or my brother's family are able to do. Hiro was often jealous about the fact that he had something old while all of the other children possessed a completely new ability. I traveled throughout the world, granting chakra to others in hopes that it would help humanity grow together in unity. I taught them all about Ninshu and its principles, helping people understand one another. I am very pleased to see that peace is beginning to replace the fear that they will be trapped by Kaguya once more. As I grow older, I am inspired by Azura's words that love will be the true key to peace. I decide to put the Jubi's chakra to use once more. I took the beast's chakra and used the Bianbutsu Sozo, a technique that requires total control over yin and yang chakra. I created the Bijou. They are to be the guardians of this world, and I named each of them so show that they are individual beings, yet connected. Shikaku, Matatabi, Isabu, Son Goku, Kokuo, Sake, Chome, Gyuki, and Kurama. Each of them are connected, and yet separate. They will become one again, however it will not be as the Jubi, but as something greater. As I awaited for the end of my life, I called forth my 2 sons. I was going to choose one of them as my successor, the one who would lead humanity to many eras of peace and tranquility. Indra believed that power would pave the road to peace, while Azura believed that love would do it in place of power. I chose Azura to be my successor as I believed that peace could be achieved through love and companionship. Indra was angered by this, and thus, the 2 brothers began to fight over who would accomplish my dream. It breaks my heart seeing that I had driven them to this. A fool I was for causing this. I should have realized that it required both love and power to create peace. I was the perfect mixture of the 2 elements, yet I was blind to that very fact. I can only pray that one day the descendants of my 2 sons will be able to put aside their differences and create a world of peace. Suddenly, I come up with a wonderful idea. I send out Isabu, Kokuo, and Kurama to bring me my nephews and half-daughter. When they arrive, I ask them to keep an eye on my sons and their descendants and make sure that neither one of their legacies goes extinct. Eventually, I discover that each of them have created clans. Azura created the Senju, Indra crafts the Uchiha, Hiro founded the Hyuga, Shirudo makes the Kaguya. I will never know why he decided to name his clan after his grandmother, and Ikari creates the Uzumaki. I just know that each of them will become great. Hamura would have been proud of his children. Before I die, there are only a few things that need to be said. First is that even though my mother has been sealed away, I can still feel a small portion of her presence in the world. I fear that one day she would be revived. If that happens, that I only hope that there are people in the future who might be able to stop her. Second is that should you be reading this, then you either have the Rinnegan, or one of my beloved Bijou are allowing you to read this. If you have the Rinnegan, then you may accidentally summon the empty husk of the Jubi. If you do, I beg of you to find a way to destroy it. My brother Hamura had tried countless times to destroy it, yet could not. I only ask that you destroy it before any of the Bijou are sealed in it. If any of them are, then please free them. Finally, I shall use the Bianbutsu Sozo one last time to leave knowledge of the Mangekyo Sharingan and the Rinnegan. I only hope that you are able to put this knowledge to good use and better the world with this information. I hope that one day, the world will become just as I have envisioned it, a world of peace. Wow, that trumps any fairy tale story, Naruto said as he sat down. Yeah, that was some story, Tsunade said as she began to use the mystic palm to heal her hand that had started to cramp up halfway through. And we've still got to read over the Mangekyo abilities, Kakashi pointed out. He had to admit the story of the Rikudo Sennin was more fascinating than any Ika Ika Paradise book. So, your name's Kurama, huh? Naruto asked. Yup, I was going to tell you one day, when you had gotten stronger and got a bit more of my respect, but I suppose there's no harm in learning about my name now, Kurama replied. I knew that the Rikudo Sennin was strong, especially since he gave people chakra, but I never knew that he was that strong, Jiyu said. Let's get this over with so I can go and see if Ka-chan found my godfather, Naruto said. Oh, so the pervert's in town, Tsunade noted. The Mangekyo Sharingan is a higher level of the Sharingan. It is gained through one of three steps: great grief, great stress, or great sacrifice. Only through great sacrifice will the Mangekyo Sharingan keep its light. If those eyes are achieved through any of the other two ways, they will eventually go blind. Only by transplanting a Mangekyo of a close family member can one regain the light in their eyes and keep it. However, Indra has shown that the Mangekyo Sharingan can control the Bijou. I made him swear to never control them, or else I would rip his eyes right out of his head. Enslavement is not something I want to see in this world, as the infinite Tsukuyomi's victims are a form of it. Now the abilities of the Mangekyo will be listed below. Amaterasu, the highest level of fire chakra. By focusing their vision on a target, one can summon the black flames to ignite on their target. The fire will burn for 7 days and 7 nights, even if the target is destroyed. These fires can even burn out other flames with ease. However, when Indra tested the fire against Akari's chakra chains, they were unable to burn it, so the fire cannot burn through chakra. Tsukuyomi, one of the most powerful illusions in existence. While it shares a similar name to the infinite Tsukuyomi, its workings are completely different. The user needs to make eye contact to be successful, and it requires a lot of chakra. Once trapped within the illusion, Indra was able to do anything to his opponents. Not even the Byakugan could free Hiro from the technique. Time and space mean nothing to the user, as 3 seconds in the real world equaled 3 days in the illusion. However, this technique places a large amount of stress on the eyes due to the chakra usage. Only I was able to break the illusion due to my Rinnegan. Kodoe Tsukumi, another illusion technique, yet very different from the Tsukuyomi. With this, the user is able to plant a very powerful, yet subtle mind-controlling illusion on the target. This makes them believe that they are doing things of their own free will due to the false experiences planted in their minds. A very frightening illusion. Indra swore never to use it as it even frightened him. Kamui, a powerful technique that allows one to teleport and become intangible. This technique is very complicated and requires complete understanding of its mechanics. The left eye possesses a long-range ability that allows warp a target that is a distance away into the other dimension that the Kamui gives access to. The right eye is short-ranged and requires physical contact in order to transfer someone to the other dimension. This eye also gives the user intangibility, allowing them to pass through objects by transferring a part of their body into the other dimension when it overlaps with another object. The intangibility can also be extended to anything the user is touching, considering that it within a reasonable size. When both eyes are used together, they allow the teleportation to work twice as fast. Susanoo, most arguably the strongest technique granted by the Mangekyo Sharingan. It is a guardian deity that protects the user from nearly all things. It is formed from the user's chakra, and its appearance is different due to its wielder. The user can freely move around in the Susanoo and can allow others to enter it if they wish. While the Susanoo can defend against external attacks, internal attacks can still damage the user, as seen when Azura used the ground under Indra to knock him out of the Susanoo, making the construct fall apart. The Susanoo will start off as a skeletal figure and gradually develop while gaining access to weapons that match the user themselves. The Susanoo will also develop up to 4 arms. Next, the Susanoo will develop a layer of armor that defends the user against stronger attacks. This form can also be granted legs, allowing the Susanoo to move around with ease. The final form is the perfect form. The Susanoo becomes gigantic, towering over the field, and transforming into the likeness of a samurai. This form is very powerful, as it can cleave the top of mountains with its sword. I am awesome! Naruto exclaimed as he finished reading all of the text. Gigi had to deal with all of that? Tsunade mumbled as she slowly sat down. That just goes to show you that the Shodaime wasn't called the Shinobi no Kami for no reason, Kakashi said as he closed his Sharingan eye and replaced the headband. I don't think we need to read anything based on the Rinnegan, do we? Naruto asked. Tsunade shook her head. No, the Rinnegan hasn't been seen ever since the Rikudo Sennin died. Then let's go back. I want to give this back to Sensei and head home for a nice relaxing bath, Tsunade ordered. The trio left the secret room and Naruto replaced the stone slab before they met up with Kurenai. As they were leaving the Uchiha compound, Naruto spoke with Kurama. So do you think I'll be able to sign that contract now? Naruto asked. I think your chakra has grown enough, far more than I had thought. You might be able to fight alongside them, Kurama noted. Great! When should I sign it? Naruto asked. Tomorrow, that's when your training will most likely begin, the elder Bijou said. Hot springs. So, you left Naruto-kun alone just because he reminded you of Minato? Kushina asked as she glared at the Sannin. Jiraiya, who looked like he was put through the meat grinder, and that's putting it lightly, added, It just hurt me greatly. Whenever I looked at the kid, I saw you and Minato, I just couldn't bear it, so I left. I also left him alone to stop any rumors that he looked like Minato from existing and reaching Iwa or Kumo. And I did help the kid. When I heard that he was kicked out of the orphanage, I sent Sensei a ton of money to pay for his new home. I even had a toad watching him and taking the names of anyone who plotted to hurt him. That still doesn't explain why he doesn't know about you. Kushina yelled. Jiraiya looked down and replied, I was worried that if he knew, he would accidentally tell someone. And if they knew that I was the godfather, they would know that Minato was his father. Everyone knows that Minato and I were close, so they would be able to connect the dots. No, they wouldn't, Kushina interrupted. Naruto-kun looks exactly like his father, if you take away the whisker marks. That's because their fear of the damn fox makes them blind to seeing it, Jiraiya told her. Fine, I'll let you off the hook for now, Kushina said as she released the Gamma Sennin. Now can you please explain as to how you're alive? Or am I going to have to assume that you're an imposter who somehow has Kushina's abilities? Jiraiya asked. And so Kushina told him of her tale, how she was kept alive the whole time and eventually gave birth to Natsumi. Jiraiya was so angry that he wanted to do nothing more than to slowly grind Danzo into mush with a Sage Mode enhanced Rasengan while boiling in a Gomen. He eventually calmed down and listened to the rest of Kushina's tale. She even gave him proof of her being the real deal by saying that she loved the idea of naming Naruto after the character of his first book. Well, I have to say that I'm sorry I didn't believe you at first, but I wanted to make sure that you were really, well, you, Jiraiya apologized. Now I need to go speak with Sensei. I just got some news that he's really not gonna like. Does it have to do with a snake leaving a hickey on an Uchiha? Kushina asked. Jiraiya just blinked. It has to do with a snake, but I don't know anything about a hickey on an Uchiha. Looks like Sensei and I will be sharing stories. And after that, you'll be helping me figure out Naruto-kun's training schedule, Kushina stated with a tone that left no room for arguments. Jiraiya sighed as he saw that he probably wouldn't get any time to do any research anytime soon. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you enjoyed this what if and want to see next part of it, comment down below and let me know. Also share this video with your friends. See you in the next video. Peace.